Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson, but I'm going to show you a very, eye-opening video if you never saw anything like this before. So, go to show you that Esau, Edom, and the so-called white people, and Jake, the so-called black, Hispanics, and Native American, there is a perpetual hatred there. So, I'm going to play some of this video, and it's going to show you how deep and entrenched this so-called racism is of these two nations of people. Let's get into this video.
Children. After I read the question, I want you to point to the picture that fits the story.
Are children colorblind in America?
Show me the smart child. Show me the mean child. Can you show me the dumb child? Show me the nice child.
Is bias measurable even at an early age?
Why is she the bad child?
Because she's black.
And why?
You heard that? That's why they relabeled you as black. Matter of fact, let me get my dictionary of the term black. So get this real quick. The term black. Right, so I'm pulling this information from the Dictionary of Religious Terms. I think this copyrighted in 1967. Let me go to it. 1967, Donald Kaufman. So I'm going to go to the word black, and I'm going to read the definition. And they have just the reason why they labeled you black. And I go through this all the time just to show you black. It says religious symbol of mourning, death, sin, sickness, and evil. Let's go to the definition one. Slovakia. White. Because there's no people the color of what you know as black and white. It was all a social construct, and that's a very nasty, hateful thing to call yourself black people, and for them to call you black people. Slovakia. It says white, religious symbol of light, joy, purity, innocence, and holiness. Now you see why they relabeled you black and relabeled themselves white. Let's keep going.
Why is he the ugly child?
Because he looks like he's white.
Why is he the dumb child?
Because he has dark brown skin.
Why is she the bad child?
Because she makes fun of everybody else's skin color.
How much do kids
Heard
learn?
that? So that's these two nations that can never be live in harmony and peace. And the Lord separated you so-called blacks, Hispanic, Native Americans from the Edomites. And that's why it's going to be the perpetual disdain, this tension between these two different nations. So even when we do these lessons, right, I do lessons, right, I get a scoffer, Edomite, that think he know more than what we saying. And it goes back into that complex, that indoctrination of Esau Edom, right? He thinks he's over everyone. Let's get into this lesson. Give me 1 second. Right, so you're looking at the original state of so-called white people. The true ethnicity that they running from that's biblical, the biblical ethnicity is Edomites. And most of the world are dumbfounded because they know these people as white people, European people, J people, the Spanish, the French, so on and so forth. But these are Edomites, and we domesticated these devils. That's why they literally did everything backwards. So they said you was the monkeys, but yet these devils was living in caves. These are the original cavemen. So when the so-called white man came into power during the Renaissance, he literally act like he came up with everything. Yet this devil stole everything. We domesticated Edomites. So let's get into this. Why is this hatred there? Why is this natural tension there between these two nations? It's all biblical. And this is something that the black Kemet so-called community, they don't have the answers to these questions. Right? You go to the black unconscious community, they don't have the answers to these questions. Let's get into the scriptures. Genesis 25 and 23. It says, "And the Lord Yahweh," all the answers is in the Bible, which a lot of you jakes don't want to deal with because you've been brainwashed to think this is a so-called white man book. "Said unto her, two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people." This is two different separate manner of people. That's why Edomites have no rhythm. They do things totally, they're a skydive, right? They mess with animals. They do things that's totally against Jake nature, the so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans. The things that's against us, what we do. Look at the music. Look at the culture. But what has happened to you Jakes is you have assimilated to their way. And you're completely out your fucking mind if you're not in the truth. "Shall be separated from thy bowels, and one people shall be stronger than the other." That's why you look at the dominant ethnicity of people is hands down the black, so-called Hispanic, and Native Americans. They control everything. When you think about it, the so-called black man, which is the head tribe of Yahweh, the Judah, is the most dominant of all the ethnicities of men on this earth. That's why they're the most hated. And then you have all the other tribes of Israel as well. It says, "And the other shall serve the younger." So it's going to be a different thing going on here. So at the end, when prophecy is said and done, the oldest, which would be Esau, is going to serve the younger, the brother. We're going to put these devils in captivity. And that's why it never will be peace and harmony long as you got the so-called white man Edomites in power. It's not going to happen. And you're delusional if you think there's always going to be that tension, that racial undertone, if you would have in this. Where does this hatred come from? Genesis 27 and 41. Esau hated Jacob. This is what it goes back into the Bible. You be wondering why the so-called white people hate so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans. It's biblical. Nobody can do anything about it. Right? So you have to equip yourself with this knowledge to understand why things are the way they are. It says, "And Esau hated Jacob," Yaquah, "because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him." And this hatred has continued to this very day. Nothing has changed because it was going to be these two adversary nations, right, that would come out the same womb. It says, "Esau said in his heart," which in his mind, "The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will slay my brother." Let's keep going. So that's why the so-called white man has did everything to tear you down, you so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native American, and they actually discredit everything that we do. We say green, they say red. We say red, they say green. We are two opposite nations. We're not going to never see things eye to eye. It's not going to happen. That's why when we do these lessons, an Edomite in his natural instinct is going to disagree and scoff. They can't help it. That's like the lion and hyena dynamic. I did a lesson on that. The lion and hyena is mortal enemies. Nothing can change that. Esau and Jacob are mortal enemies. Natural born enemies. Ezekiel 35 and 5. It says, "Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred." Right? This matter of fact, let me go up a verse so you can see that this is talking about Esau, Edom, so-called white people today. And that's why they're so vicious with their hatred towards you. Ezekiel 35 and 3. It says, "And say unto it, Thus said Yahweh by Shem Yahushua." It says, "Behold, O Mount Seir." So this is code language because the Edomites dwelled in Mount Seir. This was their original home, not the Caucasus Mountains. There was a secondary home after this, when the Dark Ages began, when so-called black people ruled the known world. But their first home and habitation was Mount Seir. That's where they from. Matter of fact, let me show you something. 1 second. So this Genesis 36:8. Thus dwelled Esau in Mount Seir, the mountain of Seir. Esau is Edom. Not making anything up. The original cave dwellers. Let's get into this. It says Ezekiel 35:3. And say unto it, thus said Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, behold, all Mount Seir. So I showed you this is talking about Esau Edom with the precept. I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. That's Babylon is going to be destroyed. This is the Edomites' headquarters of their wickedness. Let's keep going. Ezekiel 35:4, it says, I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate. So this talking about Babylon, the great America. And thou shalt know that I am Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah. Let's keep going. Ezekiel 35:5. Because thou, why is this going to happen? Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel. Jacob, Yaqua. It says, by the force of the sword in a time of their calamity and a time when their iniquity had an end. So this devil over oppressed us. He took it too far. And this perpetual hatred was already prophesied to happen since the beginning of the foundation of the world. This is the Lord's story that we're living through. Let's go here. And that's why, let's go to this word perpetual. It says perpetual. It says never ending or never changing. It says never ending, endless, relentless. It says relentless. This devil has had a relentless attack on the Israelites, non-stop. This devil ain't got no chill. He's been full throttle oppressing the children of Israel, right? Perpetual. Let's go here. It says Obadiah 1:3. It says, the pride of thine heart have deceived thee. So Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah set you up just to bring you down. The dwellers in the clefts of the rocks. So these are the original cave dwellers. I'm going to go to another version so you can make it clear. Whose habitation is high. They said in his heart, which is his mind, who shall bring me down? Let's go to Obadiah. I think this is going to be the NLT. It says Obadiah 1:3. You have been deceived by your own pride because you live in a rock fortress and make your home high in the mountains. Cave dwellers. This is what this devil origin is. That's where he comes from. The caves. Mount Seir. The mountain region of Seir that they would actually carve into the mountain holes in the rocks. You know what I'm saying? Holes in the mountains, right? And this would be their original state that they were in. So we domesticated these devils. We taught them everything that they know, but what they did is went and whitewashed everything and stole our history and stole all the creations, you know, the inventions, and say they came up with it. That's why they had to put together the pseudoscience to make the so-called white man seem that he's more intelligent than everybody on earth. They've been relentless with this pseudoscience. Let's go here. Natural born enemies. Check this out. Going back into prophecy. That's why it's always going to be that friction between Esau and Jacob, so-called blacks and the Israelites. So-called blacks, Hispanic and Native Americans, and the Edomites. It says natural born enemies refers to organisms inherently pitted against each other, like predators and prey. It says in pests and beneficial insects. You hear this? So it's nothing no one can do. There's always going to be that tension until the Lord come back and we put, you know, the kingdom of heaven is set up and things are set back into order. So it's going to be that tension, that hatred, right? Discrimination, you know, you name it, because of this ancient hatred, natural born enemies. All right. Hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Halal Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushua, Bahashim, Rachat, Qudash. Shalom.